Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. As always, here with Johnny. How's it been, Johnny?
What's up, Garrett? Nothing new, man. I mean, same old grind, summer grind, but we finally reached the end. The finals have come and gone. Bit of a roller coaster during them, but congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm sure we'll get into more detail about that. But other than that, not a whole lot new over here. What's going on with you?
Yeah, same old, but obviously the finals, like you said, they're over. And last time I had a Zion Williamson jersey to show you. Well, obviously, Johnny. Now I got Giannis, the finals MVP. Figured it was only right to represent him after one of the craziest finals ever. But we can start with that. We can hop right into the NBA Finals. Obviously, the Suns, they're up 2-0. A lot of talk about Chris Paul's going to win his first ring. Devin Booker playing like the next version of Kobe, and like DeAndre Ayton was dominant in Game 1. Bridges had a great game too, but then the Bucks just came out the next four, and Giannis put on a clinic. Chris Middleton came up down the stretch. Drew Holiday had big defensive plays. What do you think of this finals?
It was action packed. I mean, everybody was complaining that we don't have big markets, we don't have LeBron, we don't have Steph, all that, but does it really matter? I mean, we still got a heck of a series. We had six competitive games, especially those last, three were literally anybody's to take. A lot of back and forth. I mean, I feel for Chris Paul. We can discuss that, sure, there were clearly some dirty plays from Chris Paul, whether it's shoving Giannis in the air or things like that. But at the same time, this is a 15, 16-year veteran who finally got his chance to be at the biggest stage and win something and fell short again. And honestly, I think we may have seen his title window open and close in the same year. Um, Everything fell for them. No AD for part of that series against the Lakers. No Jamal Murray in the Nuggets series. No Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers series. So it was just the pieces fell. They didn't have to face the Nets. Sure, they faced the Bucks, who may be a better team, but it was like this just seemed too good of an opportunity for them to pass up on. And I think you also look at the timelines. Like everybody on the Bucks, minus Chris Paul and Jay Crowder, are young and still learning and still adapting to the game and really putting a foot in the NBA. They've never really made the playoffs. Then you have Chris Paul, 15, 16-year vet, who has never made the finals before this, but has been in these games and made the conference finals. You have Jay Crowder, was in the finals last year. So it's like a mix and match of timelines, but I think that's what made this team come together and really get to where they were. As for the Bucks, I mean, think about the pickups that they made in the offseason and during the season. First of all, Drew Holiday, obviously the big one. The Bogdanovich thing fell through. You got Drew Holiday. Really not much more that needs to be said between the steal, the alley-oop, the defense, all that. But then you have smaller pickups, the Bobby Portises of the world, who came in and gave great minutes and double-digit points in Game 6 in the clinching game on the road off the bench. And then PJ Tucker. I think every team wants a PJ Tucker. Every team needs somebody who's selfless, who's able to go in there and do the dirty work, and he did just that. So honestly, I've been clamoring and I've been, calling for Coach Bud to get fired. And I mean, you can't fire a coach that just won the title, but at the same time, like I'm asking myself, has a coach ever been fired after winning the title? Because I still think there's ways that you can warrant it. So it's just funny, but congrats to him on winning the title as well. It's been so close with Atlanta, but could never get over those LeBron teams. So honestly, when a team wins, you give all the praise and you feel very good for those players that won it. But then there's always somebody on the losing team that you feel deserved it so much that fell short. And that's kind of where I am with this.
Yeah, just on the point with coaching, Budenholzer has had a reputation of a coach that has never really made adjustments. He's always been outcoached in big time playoff games. But in this series, I think he outcoached Monty Williams, and that says a lot because this is a guy that was top 3 for Coach of the Year, was voted by the coaches as Coach of the Year, and a lot of people were saying maybe he got snubbed by Thibodeau in winning the award. And Budenholzer, I mean, his job hanging by a thread. People are saying if they lose that he could be fired. So I think you got to give him credit there. For the Bucks, I mean, Giannis was just insane. I'm just trying to look back. Obviously Jordan in the finals had great performances. Shaq with the Lakers, LeBron's had them. Kobe, Jerry West, but he's in a class with those guys. That's how he played in these finals, and it was just insane. Chris Middleton, I saw something on Twitter that said, I think it was actually Richard Jefferson said it. He's like Middleton plus Drew equals the Kobe to Giannis's Shaq. And in a way, it makes sense because Middleton was the closer and Drew Holiday was, the guy taking responsibility defensively. So you put them together and that's almost like what Kobe did. But I mean, Drew Holiday had big plays. The Game 5 one, like you said. Game 4, he had big plays against Chris Paul, and then Game 6, the whole game, he wasn't feeling his shot, but obviously he was taking Devin Booker, and most of the last few games he took Chris Paul. But it was just great to see. Obviously, the Bucks and 6 culture was fun to see too. I think I mentioned before on here that I'm a Brandon Jennings guy. That was one of my favorite players back in the day. So just seeing, I know he's not on the team, but just seeing him there, front row, celebrating with the team. He took pictures with the trophy. He was at the parade today. So it's that was just really cool to see, him celebrate with the team. But yeah, and then on the Suns end of things, I think they didn't really have any form of failure per se. And it's rare that a team comes in first year and just goes all the way. Unless you had massive injuries. The Lakers made the playoffs last year for the first time in 7 years. But it's LeBron was hurt, and then they added Anthony Davis in that offseason. But it's just hard to come in first year, especially Jay Crowder's the only guy that had finals experience, and then go all the way. But I think maybe we can chill out a little bit with some of the Devin Booker, Kobe comparisons, and DeAndre Ayton comparisons to Tim Duncan and Kareem. I remember, but I mean, they did have their moments in the playoffs. They played really well, but obviously there's still more work to do. And then, like you said, I don't think anyone is feeling worse than Chris Paul. And everyone was saying how he deserves a ring the most, but at the end of the day, yeah, he didn't play bad, but he could have done a lot of things better too. And this is probably it. Giannis, who had been craving a championship over the past few years, looked like he deserved it more. He looked like he wanted it more. So, I don't know. I mean, that's the tough thing for Chris Paul. It's I don't know if he's ever going to get back there. Maybe next year he might have a solid chance because, the Clippers and the Nuggets will be injured. And you don't know what the Warriors are going to do. You don't know what the Blazers are going to do. But I don't know. It's time doesn't go in reverse.
Yeah, and as you spoke upon those comparisons, a lot of premature comparisons. I think what it is it's people living in the moment and not thinking it through, right? It's, Devin Booker just scored 40 points. Is he the next Kobe Bryant? Okay, he scored 40 points in a finals game. He's played 2 finals games in his career. Let's give it some time. So I think a lot of it is people living in the moment and making these assertions without letting things play out.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I will give him credit because even in most of the games they lost, with the exception of Game 6, he was not bad. I mean, he had a 40-point performance in 2 of the games that they lost, so you can't really hold that against him there. But yeah, obviously, what people say, it don't mean a thing without a ring, so it's just tough. But yeah, I mean, if you want, we can move on to some of the other subtopics. The first one is Kawhi Leonard. Ever since the Clippers have been eliminated in the conference finals, it was reported now that he is getting ACL surgery on a slight tear, and is expected to miss about 9 months, which would put him about at the beginning of like April. Now, obviously, with the timeline like going back to normal next year, playoffs are going to start like middle of April. So it's like theoretically he would be back before then, but obviously we know Kawhi, he likes to be careful with his injuries. So, and also you got to see if like the Clippers are even going to be in that position because a whole season without him, pretty much, it's going to be hard to fight in the Western Conference. So, what do you think of this injury news with Kawhi?
Heartbreaking. I mean, but then again, it is Kawhi. So, like you said, you have to be cautious with the timeline that 9 months could easily be 12 months. So I'm no doctor. I can't make any assertions. I can't tell you how long he's going to be out. I can just tell you that Paul George played well without him, and I think the Clippers are still a playoff team without Kawhi Leonard. But their seeding will obviously be hurt very badly, and it's one of those things where it's hard to recover from an ACL injury where your first games are in high leverage playoff games. So see what the Clippers do to manage it. We'll see what Kawhi feels like. But all I can say is that the seeding will for sure be affected by this injury.
Yeah, and I mean the next topic that we'll get into, like, will maybe be more favorable for them potentially, getting into the playoffs. But what I think is that I know a lot of people were upset with Kawhi himself and his camp for, holding off on that injury news and like it was basically bugging people. And then they were saying like, why wouldn't he just get the surgery earlier? But you also got to realize if he got the surgery 2 weeks earlier, that's like middle of March that he's expected to come back then. So, and I still don't know if he'd come back because we know how he likes to be careful with his own injuries. So again, like I think he was hoping he could return, but obviously, it just wasn't the case. And I mean, that's why he said he was good. Like after game 4, he probably had no thought process in his mind that like I'm gonna miss more than like maybe 1 or 2 games or something. Uh, but yeah, I think that's tough, especially next year. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the way the Clippers played this year in the playoffs, they're going to have most likely all their key players back except for Reggie Jackson. And they might need to prioritize signing him or picking up a few other pieces in Kawhi's absence. But I don't know. It's going to be tough in the West, but I think that they have a good chance to fall somewhere like in the 7 to 10 range.
Yeah, I think I peg them a little higher. I think that the Clippers could still find themselves in the 4 to 6 range. And you still have Paul George. You saw what he did without Kawhi Leonard. And then you're going to have some sort of supporting cast around him. Kennard played well in the playoffs. Terrence Mann's only getting better. Patrick Beverley's Patrick Beverley. Zubats is a solid player. Marcus Morris. So, I mean, they still have pieces. They'll still be a playoff team. But like I said, it's just seeding that's up in the air.
And the good thing is that, like, Kawhi, obviously, history of load managing. So I think the Clippers, they'll be a little bit more familiar without playing with Kawhi in the lineup. That I think, like you said, I think that they'll also get into the postseason. But I mean, we'll just have to see. But moving on though to the next topic, which is the play-in format is expected to be kept for next season. And that's why we're talking with the Clippers might have a better chance to get in the playoffs, even if they struggle. What do you think of this? Keeping this rule for next season.
I think this is the last year they do it. I think the reason they're doing it is because now you're going to have because now you're coming off a season where there were so many games in a short period of time. You have these players still feeling unrested, I guess, and being pushed to the max. So it's, hey, well, one more year, we'll let it slide. Then once everything is back to what we consider normal, we'll get rid of it. Or at least that's how I'm thinking through it. So, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I think the NBA is best served with the top 8 teams go no matter what. But for the circumstances that have been surrounding it, I'm okay with the play-in for one more year.
Yeah, I know. Like a lot of players have said they're okay with it because of the talent in the league right now. I think it's more so like also the parity of it as well. That there's a lot of teams where it's like that could fall anywhere from 5 until like the 11 seed or something like that. So you want to, and that's another thing. Like I've said before, like with the All-Star game, how they need to expand that to like 15 players. But yeah, I mean, even the play-in, I think that it'll be interesting. I mean, it obviously adds another element of playoff basketball, because, and usually you're going to see a lot of these teams that you might not see in the playoff atmospheres. You know, maybe like the Oklahoma City Thunder just added Kemba Walker in a trade. Maybe he has a bounce back season. Obviously, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Uh, but those two playing together, that might be interesting to see, like in a play-in, if it happens. And like, there's other teams like maybe the Kings or the Pelicans or something, like we'll see them for the first time, likely in next play-in. But I don't know. I think that it's an interesting addition. I don't know if like I don't know. I like the idea of 16 teams in the playoffs, but obviously the play-in was so good this year. Um, the idea of it, obviously, a lot of the games were blowouts, and the top seed won anyway, so it didn't have like much difference in like the actual standings at the end of the year. But I don't know. I think it should be an interesting factor for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be more interested or intrigued just to see what happens after this year and see if they go back to the just top 8 in each conference.
Yeah, for sure. But we can move on though to our next topic. Obviously, next season there's a lot of stuff that could happen with free agency, the draft. We haven't started any of that, but we can just, I guess, make some bold predictions for next season. I have 5 myself. Did you pick 5 as well?
Yep,
Okay.
I have
So,
5.
all right. So, I don't know if you want to start off with your first one, and we can just keep going back and forth.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll go with my first one. First one is actually based on the runner-up. I do not have the Suns making it out of the first round of the playoffs in this upcoming year, should they make the playoffs.
That's an interesting one. Obviously, though, with the West, like there's going to be more teams next year, and you'd hope everyone's going to be healthy. So it'll be tough. The first one I have, I'm going to go with this one first. I have the Sacramento Kings will make the playoffs. I think that, they've had De'Aaron Fox. He's been in and out of the lineup for several years. When Buddy Hield, I think that's kind of ran its course. I think they're going to put Tyrese Halliburton in there as the 2 guard next to Fox. And I just think they're going to take off like they did 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's out of the question. We've just seen recently that that you have some teams that haven't really had success finally start to cross that bridge, and Sacramento could be one of them. For my second one, I'm going to go, we see another superstar finally win his first ring. So we saw AD win his first ring in the bubble. We saw Giannis win his first ring this year. And I think next year we see James Harden hoist the Larry O'Brien for the first time in his career.
That's an interesting one. Because my next one that I had is I think the Nets will not win again. Now listen, like there's a lot of stuff that could happen, but I think they're likely not going to be bringing back Spencer Dinwiddie. I think that's kind of out of the question. And it's just a matter of like how those guys all gel together for a full season's worth, because you'd expect them all to be healthy. Obviously, Harden was traded midway through the year, and then Durant went out, and then like Harden was playing so well, then he went out, then Kyrie, so I don't know. I think that we'll see what happens next year with them, but I'm going to be bold and say that they won't win it all next year.
Well, obviously that contrasts exactly what I said, so one of us will be right. At least we have that going for us.
Taking the field.
My third one, I have a top 10 player will get traded either during the offseason or during the season, most notably Dame. Extend that out and say that 3 or 4 top 25 players will get traded at some point in the season. So you have names Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, Kyle Lowry, Dame Lillard, like I said. So I think we're going to see some big pieces being shuffled amongst some of the top teams in the NBA.
The third one that I have is, I mean, I don't know how bold this is necessarily, considering the fact that their front office is like weird. I'm seeing mixed reports with everything, but I personally don't think Ben Simmons will be traded by the start of next season. I think that they're going to start running with him. I know Sixers fans are saying like get him out of there. Like they're almost like done with him. It seems like, but I think that he'll start next season with the team. He could get traded midway through next year though. But I think opening night you'll see Ben Simmons in a Sixers uniform.
Yeah, crazy that it seems like we're literally coordinating our bold predictions, but for the record, Garrett and I did not talk about any of these before the show.
We did.
So odd that our second one both had to do with the Nets and the third one trades. I'm going to assume that our fourth one does not line up. But for me, and once again, I don't know where you guys rate this on a scale of boldness, if that's even a thing, but I'm going to go Luka will win MVP.
I think that's pretty realistic, to be honest. I don't know if he's the favorite. I won't say that, but
yeah, I think it's bold in a sense that Luka versus the field is obviously heavily favored in that sense.
Well, especially if the Mavericks elevate in the standings and they don't make like a major superstar addition, then I mean he's going to have the numbers. He's probably going to have the impact to definitely warrant that. Now I do have one with like who I think will win MVP, but I'm gonna save that for a second. The fourth one that I have is I think the Western Conference champions next year will be the Utah Jazz. Because I think Donovan Mitchell obviously has had two heartbreaking ends of the season consecutively in the bubble and then this year with the Clippers. They're obviously looking at like maybe what they can get with Bogdanovich and Joe Ingles. I saw reports on that. And then it'll be interesting to see what in the world happens like for Rudy Gobert. Because obviously he was Defensive Player of the Year, but obviously he has his flaws as well. And the Clippers exploited that. So it's like maybe he adds an element to his game that makes the Jazz more favorable in the playoffs, or maybe like something catastrophic happens and they make like a big, trade package. I don't know, but I think the Jazz will win the West next season.
So I guess that coordinates with my fifth one. I'm going no LeBron, no Steph, or no Kawhi in the finals for the second straight year. So that obviously eliminates the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Warriors. And I've already been on record saying that the Suns are not going to make it. So now that puts me in a spot to choose a bunch of teams that not a lot of people are picking. But that's just where I sit.
Well, yeah, and if Luka managed to pull that off with the Mavericks, and maybe they even win it all, that might be like an all-time great season. But my fifth one, my MVP, I think the MVP is going to be Damian Lillard in a Portland Trailblazers jersey. I think that it's going to be a lot like in 2007 when you saw like Kobe like requesting potentially to go out of LA, requesting like the Bulls, the Pistons were involved with some of that. And then he comes out the next year, he wins MVP. They obviously gave him a guy like Gasol, and then he won multiple championships. I'm not saying that's going to happen like with Portland, but I feel like he's going to have that kind of revenge season. I just think it's bound to happen.
Yeah, it's crazy that literally like almost all of our picks were aligned in one shape or form between MVP, Nets not making the title, the Jazz winning it, the West. So a lot of overlap there. So it seems like almost one of us is going to be correct in almost all of these except for like the MVP. So that'll be interesting. That'll at least be something that we have to hang our heads on.
I will add one that I just thought of. I feel like, and this could be like subjective anyways, but I feel like the draft is going to be more like chaotic than free agency this year. I feel like the draft, because obviously draft night trades and stuff like that, who gets picked where, I feel like that's going to be seen as like a crazier night than like the free agency period, if that makes sense.
Also, I agree to this extent in that a lot of what we expect to happen during the free agency period is predicated on trades, and I'm not going to necessarily bundle trades into the free agency period because when I'm thinking free agency, I'm thinking, okay, John Collins, is he signing with the Hawks or not? So in that sense, yes, because really John Collins is probably the biggest name of a player either re-signing with where he is or moving on. But you got guys like Dame in the trade market, Ben Simmons. So in that case, yes, I do expect quite a bit of shuffling the deck in the draft as well. So I'm always a big fan of draft night. So excited for that.
And I won't like consider necessarily trades outside the draft, but I feel like, I mean, we both remember as Bulls fans, like when Jimmy Butler got traded on draft night. I feel like we're going to see another trade like that on the same night as the draft. I don't know who, but I know Colin Sexton's already been in like some rumors, but maybe it'll be him, maybe it will be Ben Simmons or something. But that would obviously take away from my other point.
I mean, you have Dame Lillard to the Houston Rockets rumors. Houston holds the number 2 pick, but do they honestly have anything else that would really intrigue Portland? You'd have to throw in Christian Wood. You'd have to throw in Kevin Porter Jr., but even those 3 bundled together is probably not anywhere near enough to get Dame. But just a lot of things that could happen. So can never predict any of the stuff that happens on trade night. There's always something that just blows my mind.
And Orlando could even be in the play too with our pick. But yeah, I think we're going to move on to our next topic and our final topic, which is just thanking the fans for support. We want to thank you guys for always supporting us all season long. It's been a fun season. We're going to keep you guys updated with like what's to come and all this stuff. But yeah, just like shout out to you guys, obviously. Shout out to our guests throughout the season. Speakeasy Sports, A1 Hoops, Sports Wikipedia, Romp 2.0, Suns Geek, Sam Darnold's forehead on Twitter, and of course Xander. You guys know Xander. So yeah, I mean, you got any final thoughts for goodbye for the season?
Just echoing what you said. I mean, guys, it's not possible without you guys viewing, listening, putting your feedback down. Otherwise, it's just Garrett and I having some weird conversations on camera. So you guys do really make it all possible. And Garrett is the man behind the machine. He's the man who makes the machine run. He does all the behind the scenes stuff. I'm just simply a cog in the machine. So not only a thank you to the fans, but a thank you to you, Garrett.
And thank you to you as well for obviously being here every single week by my side. And I mean, we'll see like what's to come. Obviously, I've been looking at Anchor potentially and I know we've kind of talked about that too as potentially something down the line, but who knows? Maybe that'll be an addition in the future. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I don't know if you have anything to add like with this show necessarily or.
I think it's all covered. Let Milwaukee celebrate what they did this summer, and until somebody dethrones them, the Milwaukee Bucks are your NBA champions.
I couldn't agree more. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and we're out. Peace. Bucks in 6. Brandon Jennings, fake NBA champion, but it counts.